together from the cosmic reaches of the universe. Here, in this great hall of the Signal Watch, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled. Join us as we discuss all manner of topics across the multiverse of comic books, history, creators, storylines, movies, and more. The Signal Watch podcast presents Kryptonian Thought Beast, a comics podcast series dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Signal Watch. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Steens, and with me today is...
Hi, I'm Danny Horn of Superheroes Every Day, which is, sorry. I'm thinking about, the thing that just happened to me was I'm thinking about, I should have plugged it at the end of the last episode. Okay, never mind. Hi, Danny Horn, Superheroes Every Day. It's a blog about the history of superhero movies in order and in detail. Turns out I have a lot of stuff to say about superhero movies, and my blog and this episode is my chance to just say it all.
And I so appreciate it. We were going to do one episode on two Fantastic Four movies. I was like, no, Simon and I do like two Draculas and two Frankensteins all the time. There is no way we're going to end up going two episodes. And I looked at the clock as we were talking about the first movie. And we just agreed we're doing two episodes. So welcome to part B. If you haven't heard part A, you have to hear it to understand what we're talking about here.
Our emotional story arc, yes. Which is extremely important throughout.
And it is an arc. But I want to start this episode by, if it's been a few days or whatever.
Are we doing previously?
And
do it.
I'm going to do an edit of previously. I'll insert it here.
Last time on the Signal Watch.
We were adults by the time Fantastic Four 2005 came out. By this point...
Were we? And I feel like this is a legitimate area of film criticism, is how hot are the people?
And the concern, of course, is that someone's going to find out that the Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, whatever your 2005 character is going to be exposed for something being wrong with him, but then straight murders somebody.
Yeah, right.
And leaves his file in the little basket.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Like if you turn into huge muscular rock man, like I could go to TikTok and find an entire community of people who would get with you in like 5 seconds. And I just feel like the movie should have a subtitle like Fantastic Four First World Problems, because it's just about being like gorgeous and rich and famous, and the conflicts are really all just temper tantrums.
It's also kind of a weird ending, because it's like, well, now it's 4 people who just murdered somebody in front of it's 4 people ganged up on somebody,
on a guy, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, people don't really know that he's a bad guy that much.
No, they have no idea.
They have no idea who he is. You're right. Yeah.
Which you had kind of said something to me on Twitter about it, of like, you're going to reframe 2005 after you've watched 2015, and it's 100% correct. If audience, if you have not seen 2015, we'll get into it.
I would recommend it just for the experience.
And now, back to the Signal Watch. Fantastic Four 2015.
Okay. So
that was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That pretty much does it.
So yeah, if you've only seen the 2005 Fantastic Four movie and you're like, that wasn't very good, Have I got news for you about the 2015 movie?
Yeah.
And it's a weird ride. If you were to take snapshots from it, you might say, I don't really see what you're talking about. How is this any different from any other superhero movie?
I don't think that's the case.
Go for it.
I feel like every single person looking at this would say this is.
But if you just saw
this is
stills
necessary.
from it, if someone handed you like a pile of 8x10 glossies,
The problem with those stills is that they would all be dark.
yeah,
There's not a lot of color. There's
No.
not a lot of smiling people. There are no superhero costumes. There's very little superhero action. And everybody hates each other.
it's I'm not even sure. I said in the last episode, if you called it like the Science Guys, I
Yeah.
might be willing to accept this.
Yeah.
This movie is definitely the Science Guys. This is not the Fantastic Four.
Yes.
I don't.
And it is
yeah.
a horror movie.
Yeah,
But this is a horror movie. Like that's what this is. Absolutely not a superhero movie. So we should let's talk about like where this comes from.
please.
Fox did the 2005 Fantastic Four. They did a 2007 with the Silver Surfer sequel. I think that didn't do very well. And so they wanted to reboot it, and it took them a real long time to reboot it. And so they got Josh Trank, who is the co-writer and director of Chronicle. Did you see Chronicle?
No, I did not.
Well, then this movie isn't going to make any sense to you. Yeah, for sure.
It did not.
I'll tell you about it. So Chronicle it's a very good movie. It's 2012. It's a lot of fun. It's like a found footage film that is about three teenagers who go into a cave and they find some magic crystals and they touch them and that gives them superpowers. And so the powers are like they can fly, they're really fast, and they can like move stuff telekinetically. And they kind of, as they go on, and they're indestructible. So it's basically Superman powers plus telekinesis. And it's just like kids, it's teenagers. And so like there's a real kind of fun part in the middle where they're just like trying stuff out and they like, play pranks on people and they're sort of like exploring what can we do with these. But one of the characters comes from like a very bad broken home, like has been abused, is just a damaged kid. And you get that damaged kid to start like, you give him superpowers, like that's going to go dark. And it does. And so like he's super like scary and dangerous. One of them dies, and then there's a huge fight at the end between the other two. So it's funny and it's interesting, and and I can see how like Fox would look at that, and it did well. Like it got good reviews. I can see how Fox would look at that and say, like, this is a fresh new take on superheroes. We got to get this guy and have him take on Fantastic Four and do something like super like interesting and clever in the same way. And the problem is that Chronicle is not a fresh new take on superheroes. Like Deadpool is a fresh new take on superheroes. Like Peacemaker, Legion, Watchmen. Like those are stories that like poke fun at superheroes and kind of question some of your assumptions about superheroes, but they leave the basic premise intact about good guys fighting bad guys. Chronicle is a movie about why superheroes are inherently dangerous and we shouldn't have them. And this Fantastic Four is made from that premise that superheroes are dangerous. We cannot have them in the world. And if they ever exist, the world will try and control and destroy them. So that's where this movie comes from.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think the only superhero, when you say that I can think of where they routinely explore that is Superman, where someone's always trying to control Superman, tell him what to do, and whatnot. Someone is, Lex Luthor's whole thing is that it's inherently dangerous to have you on the planet. You're bad for humanity.
Yeah, that is the thing. That's like that's Superman 3 for sure, with like that bad Superman, and then Batman v Superman is all about that.
Yeah. But
but
it's like,
but then this is a movie that's like from Lex Luthor's point of view.
Right. And you know, I looked at it when it was in pre-production and was like, oh, okay. I read the Mark Millar Fantastic Four stuff, Ultimate Fantastic Four.
Mhm.
Didn't like it, read the first two trades, I think, and I couldn't tell you, aside from, I could probably tell you something about it because it was very similar to the setup for this film.
That's right.
And you know, as far as like reads, the big change they made for Ultimate Fantastic Four was their kids. Mm-hmm. They're going to make them like really smart teens, but they do it in a way that this movie doesn't. In that, like, Reed is, you know, sci-fi smart, which he is in this movie as well. But here, it felt like, I think I wrote down as this explorers at the beginning. Mm. You know, they're doing stuff in their garage, and it's kind of the kid who doesn't have any skills, just kind of hanging out with the really smart kid. And if this had ended with them flying in a bubble through space to get sexy with an alien, I would have been like, yeah, all right. I've seen this before.
Yeah.
And they similarly had like whatever was going on with the Baxter Building and an institute and all that jazz, I believe, came from the comic. It diverges significantly once they get their powers, but that's where they get the, like, we're not going into space, we're changing dimensions.
Right.
That's where we get our powers from thing, which I thought was weak sauce when I read it in the comic. I was like, come on, man, you're not really. It does go into the Fantastic Four immediately in the comic, start like bursting through dimensional barriers. And I think that's why they chose to do this, but it's too much too soon or something, and they don't do enough with it when they do it.
Yeah,
it's not interesting. It's not Jack Kirby going, I made a collage,
right?
Which was the whole point of the dimension burst thing that they were doing.
Yeah, this takes a long time to go anywhere. Like I ran the numbers. 2005 movie, the big space explosion happens at 14 minutes. And then there's some, you know, then there's a while until they all are completely in a character. So I'm sort of considering, like, when you see Ben as the Thing, like, is the real milestone of like, okay, now we're in that part of the movie. So it's like 14 minutes for the space explosion. We see Ben at 30 minutes, and then after that, there's an hour and 15 left in the movie. 2015, the explosion happens 46 minutes in. So there's a real long way to get to the other dimension thing. So that happens at 46 minutes. You see Ben for the first time at 52 minutes. And at that point, there's only 46 minutes left in the movie. So most of this movie is not the superhero movie. It's just really long, like, build up to it.
Yeah.
And then when you get there, it's awful.
I thought I'd written something down about time on my own notes, but I think that was for the other movie. I didn't do it for this one, but yeah. It's because
time just went slow.
That's what was my. Yeah, I was watching it and I was like, "How long is this movie?" And I remember pausing it.
It's not even that long.
And going, "Oh my god, I'm only 40 minutes in. I thought it had been an hour and a half. I swear." It's a slog from when it starts. It's a long way to go.
And the weird thing about this movie is that I don't know who made it. Nobody really knows who actually made this movie. It's a mystery. So Josh Trank, they just, like, not a good idea hiring him. He was like an indie guy who made a clever low budget movie, which was a good idea and was interesting. And they say, like, cool, they gave him a Star Wars movie and this. He got fired before he did the Star Wars movie, but like that was what was lined up for him. Was like, okay, next you're going to do Fantastic Four, and then you're going to do Boba Fett. Like, they gave this guy a Boba Fett movie. And they said, like, okay, so now you're doing like mainstream licensed superhero movie with everything that comes with that, as far as like studio involvement and comic book company involvement, and everybody has an opinion. And he took the job, and he was just not going to be successful at that job. So he worked with his friend Jeremy Slater, who is a screenwriter who helped him with Chronicle. And so Trank worked with Slater on this movie, and Trank did not like comic book movies. Like Slater, I read Slater says that when they were working on it, the Avengers had just come out, and Slater was like, "Yeah, that's what audiences want to see." And the quote is, "Josh just fucking hated every second of it." So that's who made this movie. And so like Trank like basically cut Slater out. Like Slater wrote a whole bunch of drafts and Trank hated everything. And so Slater just left after like 6 months. So that's who this movie is made by, is somebody who hated the Avengers and who hates superheroes.
I mean, it's in the DNA of the movie. Like it wants to be, I did see when I was looking for the timestamp, I wrote, this is an FF body horror movie.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's such a strange take of like the thing that you absolutely could sell dolls to kids for. I mean, we can do a Batman podcast some other time, but to take that concept, which has some inherent drama and melodrama and comedy, and turn it into this slog of
nightmare,
of bad feeling and ill will, and trying to figure out why these people want to talk to each other at all. And you think all of them are going to end up like Victor as far as their attitude goes. The Victor we meet, who's like the 9/11 truther or whatever he's doing, in his apartment by himself. I mean, that's the path all of them seem on, including Sue. And, Johnny's already gone when the movie starts. Or when you meet him, he's already departed. He wants to be fast and furious, I guess. Which is Johnny, fair enough. But they take all of these things that you know about the characters and make them kind of sad.
They are sad. It is a sad movie. The beginning, there's some fun stuff in the early part, because at least they have like some nice interactions with each other. Once they get superpowers, the movie basically takes place underground from then on. Like the last half of the movie is just like in a government bunker where government people are talking to them through loudspeakers, and calling them like subject 1 and subject 2. Like that's the whole half of the movie. And like talking about like they're out of containment. It's so depressing. And they hate each other. And absolutely they all completely hate each other. And so that ending, like, I don't know who came up with that ending. So like the weird story is that like they hired Josh Trank. He's not happy. He really doesn't know what he's doing. He's completely in over his head. He's trying to tell people what to do, and every single person that he talks to has made more movies than he has. He's got like a director of photography who's like already made big budget science fiction movies. He's got, like everybody that he talks to, the lighting people, the set people, like everyone has done movies and he has not. And the studio is telling him how to do things. And he kind of just got depressed, and like withdrew, and he was really erratic. There's a story that I read about, like that said that with the actors during takes, he would be telling actors when to blink and when to breathe, which is not a thing. That's not a thing that you do as a director. Like he really wanted their performances like really like flat, and so the studio at a certain point just took it away from him. They were like, this is not working. And they started to have a fight with him, and they had new people come in and like try to write the film, and kind of one of the producers kind of took over, and kind of the editor took over, and like they did a version of the movie and showed it to the execs, and the execs hated it. And so they did all these reshoots, and like, as far as I know, like people were like, the actors were just like handed new pages, and I'm not sure where those pages came from. Like they were just like the movie didn't have an ending, and so they were trying to come up with an ending kind of on the fly while they were doing reshoots. And so it is not clear to me like who made a lot of these decisions. And Trank says that very little of his actual work was in there.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of track what I suspect was his stuff by the wig on Sue or lack of wig on Sue. Like,
yes, those are the reshoots. Yeah,
when can you see the part in her hair, or is it, can you see her scalp in the part or not?
Yeah,
and she has kind of this Elsa wig she wears sometimes.
Yeah,
and but if she's not in the scene, you don't really know. But that was always when I was kind of like, wow, this is, you can, it's kind of in Superman 2, you can tell the Lester stuff by how tired or whether she's wearing a wig on Margot Kidder. And and it kind of switches back and forth, and sometimes in the same scene where Margot Kidder looks gorgeous and all this, and then another they'll cut and she just looks tired. She
has this like curly wig, curly hair wig. Yeah, it's awful.
You can tell she's been crying because Margaret Kidder was going through a divorce at the time, and blah blah blah. But this movie, you wouldn't know. I mean, to their credit, it goes A, B, C, D, E. It just, you can't say like, oh, it doesn't feel like it's edited together. It just, that flatness that he put into the movie is just omnipresent. Like, couldn't get away from it.
Yeah, the story that I read was that like Trank basically hated, like, the editor. There were ultimately two different versions, and the one that they used was the editor's version. And Trank said, like, he didn't use a single shot that I used in mine. Like, it was all the different takes. And he said there were two things that he really liked about the movie as it was. One was the guy's head exploding in the suit at the end. And when Reed wakes up and screams and screams and screams and screams as he discovers that, like, he's all stretched out. Those are the two things that Josh Trank thought was good. So just imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it's superheroes are in this like really weird flex point of who are they for?
Yes. Yeah.
And this may be ground zero for that in a lot of, I mean, I think it's really probably Batman Begins.
I think Batman Begins, yeah.
But this movie really just like leans on the gas pedal, like with that question of, at the end of the day, I don't think this movie is for anybody. I can't imagine who would have given this movie a positive review.
Like a pass. Yeah, nobody did.
Yeah. I mean, it's 9%, which means 9% of somebody out there was like,
someone liked it.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. But probably people who hated superhero movies anyway.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, it's another superhero movie. And that was registered as a positive review. It feels like a movie as written and done by like a psychopath. Like, and I don't mean that like a crazy stabby way. I mean, in a like
I don't understand human behavior kind of way.
Yeah. I don't understand why people would be upset by the decisions I'm making or the things I'm saying.
One thing that is weird about this movie, and also I gotta say, like, Zack Snyder movies, basically, it's dark, and not like dark like it has dark themes, but literally it, like, the whole movie is gray and shadowy, and I think there's maybe two scenes where they actually have the lights turned on. But it is mostly like literally it's just too dark, and I don't understand that aesthetic at all. The end of the movie is practically black and white. Like, they just removed all color from the world.
Yeah.
I don't know your feelings on Zack Snyder.
I am not the world's biggest Zack Snyder fan. I'll put it that way. I think in some ways he'd be an amazing art director for somebody else. As a director himself, I don't think he understands story or character or how to not be 13. And I don't mean that in a fun way.
Yeah. Or lighting. Like that's actually the thing for me. Or lighting. Like I don't know why it bothers me as much as it does. But
well, I mean, my understanding with a lot of it with the Zack Snyder stuff is because everything he just basically shoots against green screen. So he's covering up his CGI worlds with shadow and fog and other things to kind of obfuscate the artificiality of the whole thing. But I don't know why in this movie, which is probably only had special effects in like 20% of it. Because it's mostly teens, in theory teens, although they all look like they're 25.
Yeah.
I couldn't, we can get into, I couldn't figure out how old anybody was later, but it doesn't make any sense other than he thought that was a cool aesthetic that would make people take the movie quote unquote seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the place where, it starts with Reed and Ben as little kids who are friends from school, and Reed is a weird science boy, and Ben is kind of a tough kid, but who is just fascinated by Reed and his work, and so helps him out, which I think is very cute. I think they have actually a really cute relationship at the beginning. The science fair scene, I thought there's a little bit of back and forth between Reed and Ben, and it's actually funny.
Felt very explorers,
yeah. And Ben, and so Reed has this obsession with I'm gonna teleport into a different dimension, and that is kind of basically drives the whole movie. So they do a science fair thing which explodes, and then they're invited by Obi-Wan Kenobi with his pretty daughter, comes by and says you're very special, I'm gonna go train you as a Jedi, and so invites him to the Baxter Foundation. And so Reed goes and lives in this weird science college complex, not really clear how this works, orphanage, they describe it at one point, and that's the scene where the darkness does not make any sense. It Reed and Ben come to the Baxter Foundation for the first time, and it is so exciting, and because here's the science place, and they're walking in, and it's kind of like a classroom and kind of like a lab, and people are somebody says something about focus groups, or not focus groups, control groups. Somebody's saying something about oh, I'm trying to get this control group, and it's just to make sure that you understand that this is a sciencey place, and so this is supposed to be the place where oh, Reed's at home for the first time, people are gonna understand him, he's gonna have people to talk to, and it's really dark. And they walk into his bedroom, which is a college dorm room, basically. And it's supposed to be this big, oh, I'm home. It's this triumphant moment. The lights are off. It's gray and cloudy outside. And Ben and Reed are both looking out the window, and they both look miserable. And Ben is dude, you're home. This is great. This is where you ought to be. And that's where that aesthetic, I'm just you can't, but don't you get that this is supposed to be the scene with the lights on?
I remember that scene, and I thought they were setting it with that tone because Ben, we're supposed to get the feeling Ben knows he's being left behind. So we're setting the mood to Ben's state, and Reed, because he's a flat affect psychopath in this movie. Right. He doesn't have any emotions about losing Ben or leaving home or anything else that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So of course, all we're getting is kind of the gray clouds of Ben. I don't know if that was intentional, but that was my read on that scene.
I think that's correct, as what they were going for. But I think the way that you do that is you show it as this light, sunny place that Reed is going to, and Ben is left behind in the shadows.
Yeah.
It feels like Ben is saying,
instead it's all gray.
Yeah, he's Ben is saying oh, you're home. This is great. And it's it's a mental hospital. They're shooting it he's being locked up.
And maybe that was intentional as part of the horror experience that Trank was trying to go for. But the high school, I think the science fair thing was probably part of the reshoots. I can't imagine that was how it was originally shot, because frankly, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
They brought in Homer Simpson to be his science teacher, who doesn't think he's actually doing anything. I'm like, you have a student who is like moving matter around, and you're ignoring this in favor of like potato radios.
Yeah, he's the mean teacher. He's like the mean, discouraging teacher.
It literally doesn't make any sense. Like the worst teacher in the world would be like,
this is a smart kid.
This is a smart kid. He's doing
it's like things. Right. It's like they don't recognize. It's like the smartest kid that you will ever possibly see in your life.
Yeah,
and they don't understand that he's smart.
Yeah, it was a really weird choice the way they did it, other than it felt kind of like an 80s movie, which made me think it was someone who kind of came in and was like, we're going to lighten it up and do something a little wacky with it because it's a science fair. But then you have the super awkward thing of, it felt awkward. I wrote some note and then I had to delete it, of like, why is this, super scientist, Mr. Storm, at this
going to a science fair,
and they're like, oh, because he's recruiting kids, but that's not clear when you meet him. That also doesn't make any
sense. Why is he recruiting kids?
Going to a high school science fair.
Going to high school science fairs, like trying to pick kids up.
Yeah. I mean, they have because the movie wants to ignore the fact that they have channels for all this stuff in the real world. Yeah. That like all you have to have is basically a high school education to know there are levels to science fairs.
Yeah.
There are judges for science fairs. There's, and
it does take place in a world where there's no internet.
That's true.
Yeah. When does this movie take place? Actually, it just occurred to me. What year is this movie set?
I don't remember any devices. Like, did anyone have cell phones?
They do some cell phone and like IP address stuff towards the end when they're hunting him. They talk about cell phones, but I don't think anyone like uses them. There's no real sense. Like computers are things that you type on and grimace at, and then science things happen. But there's no like, but there's no sense of like, but they mentioned Instagram. He does take a picture.
He does the selfie.
With a selfie. But there's no sense that like this smart kid would have like a group of smart people that he would talk to on the internet and would already know what the Baxter Foundation is.
Yeah, I mean,
it's very weird. Yeah, it takes place in the past. Somehow.
They never also. Reed is still an island within the school, which. Yeah. They never make a point of that or not a point of that. He just doesn't seem to interact with anyone except for his like, I know what 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is, like weird moment. I was like,
that's the weirdest thing in the world. Yeah. Should we get into Miles Teller, like the problem of Miles Teller?
Go nuts.
I was hoping that you would be able to explain him because I can't. He's terrible.
Well, so did you ever read the interview with him after this movie?
Yes. No. Oh no. What'd they
say? He's the biggest jackass I've ever read an interview with.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. It was incredible. What did he say? He was the most arrogant, like totally unearned, whatever. And he was basically trying to like salvage his career in the wake of this movie.
Yeah.
And because he had like War Dogs coming out, and it was one of those interviews where he kept telling the person how smart he was. Yeah, he was telling the interviewer how normal he was, but how cool he was.
Oh my goodness!
And like showing, like he was doing a bunch of like photo spreads showing off his abs. Like, people don't understand I have abs. I have abs.
Really?
Yeah, it was insane. If I can find the interview, if it's still online, I'll link to it and on the blog. But
I would like to see that.
He's the biggest jackass I literally think I've ever read an interview with. And he I don't think he can act. I mean,
no.
He also doesn't have like hardly any IMDb credits after like 2018 either. So I think things really dried up for him and after Whiplash, or else something else is going on with him. But
I think he lost. I can't remember. He lost a role because Fantastic Four crashed. There was some role that he was going to have, and it got, but I can't remember what it was.
I mean, I don't know.
But he is awful in this. Basically, he has no facial expression. He really doesn't connect to any other actor.
No.
He is him and Sue. Once again, I feel like I just feel like can they cast Reed and Sue? Like, is that a thing that is possible to do in human life? Because I feel like these two are like kind of, yeah. Now I'm thinking about, like, in both movies, like I really like Chris Evans, and I think that Michael Chiklis as Ben is good. In this movie, like Michael B. Jordan as Johnny is like, Michael B. Jordan is great. I'm just going to say that, and I don't even have to back that statement up. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And I think the guy who plays Ben, whose name I can't remember,
Jamie Bell.
He's very good. Jamie Bell, I think, is very good in this. But both Reed and Sue, like, you hurt me.
She said, I just read the Wikipedia article last night, but
yeah,
she said this was the worst experience she'd ever had working.
Yeah, she was unhappy.
I don't know what the details were
I think
around
Josh
that.
Trank really didn't want her. Josh Trank, so this is actually a thing that that Josh Trank wanted both Johnny and Sue to be black.
Right.
And and so they managed to do that with Johnny. But he wanted to cast, I forget who the woman was. But there's a black actress that he wanted to cast, and they said, no, we need a white girl. We need a white blonde girl. And he was really against that. And so I think he kind of like took it out against, he also might kind of have problems with girls. I feel that from this movie. I don't think Chronicle has any female characters. So yeah, he might have kind of a woman problem. But yeah, so he was apparently like really horrible to her.
I mean, she seems put out through the entire film, and they try and even do the like kind of 2010-ish thing of like, I need my beats in order to think,
Right.
It was just like, that I don't think that was Trank. I think that was someone trying to give her some business or something.
Yeah.
But
pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Pattern recognition. Oh, listeners, I wish you could have just seen the eye roll. When I say, if you haven't seen the movie, like the moment that just happened is like they talk about pattern recognition twice in the movie, both times embarrassingly. And all I had to do just now was just say like pattern recognition. Oh, for fuck's sake, pattern recognition. So like Reed and Sue, how do you even explain? Reed, like, so he's new at the Baxter Foundation, which is kind of school. And he kind of like sits down at her table in the library, and this is supposed to kind of be like their meet cute. Like this is like the first time that like, oh, these two people are together, except he's giving nothing. And she's listening to music, and he's trying to talk to her.
He's trying to mansplain 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah, so the first thing out of his head is they have this book. He's excited because they have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in the library. They have this book. It's about Captain Nemo, and he tries to like, he creates this, he invents something and goes down, and she's like, yeah, dude, I read that book. Like everybody's read that book. And he doesn't recover. I think he doesn't recover from that for the entire rest of the movie.
No, there's zero connection between them, and it feels hostile beginning with this scene.
Yeah. And so he says, so you like music? Is that kind of like your thing? Which is embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then she says, well, it's pattern recognition.
Yeah.
And he's like, what is that? And she's like, well, music is just patterns. Like, it's just they're setting up patterns and then resolving them. And that's really satisfying. And there's patterns everywhere and in everything. And his response is like, what's mine? Which does not make sense as a question. And yet she answers it.
It
pattern recognition.
It had to have been the reshoots. I don't remember her. I don't remember the split in her hair during the scene.
I don't know.
But it has such a
hard scene. It's a hard scene. So what is my pattern? And then she she says like, what, like you think you're super smart, you're going to be famous.
Yeah.
Like that's your pattern.
She's now met him for a total of 17
for a minute.
Minutes. Yeah.
And he says like, am I that predictable? And she says, everybody is.
Yeah.
And then she walks away. It doesn't make sense. It's a terrible scene.
They must not have had a meet cute in the original this is my thinking. They needed to have they needed to have a meet cute, which they didn't have. Doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But they also needed to have it so that so she could track him and
Later.
have something smart to say about it.
Yeah.
So they'd have a closed loop.
Right.
She's
good at patterns. That's a thing that you're good at, and she's good at that. Yeah. She, by the way, I don't think she turns invisible in the entire movie.
She has force field, just telekinesis. She does turn invisible. But it's an insert from the reshoots.
Yeah.
She's in the middle of that like weird thing where they have the like cargo. Where they're doing the rundown of what everyone's powers are now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like
you mean in like the underground?
Yeah.
They right. When you first see her, she's lying on a bare metal table because it's a body horror movie, and she's like phasing in and out of But like, if you have a character whose job it is to be invisible,
right?
You have a scene where she needs to sneak by somebody. That's how you make a movie that has a character who can be invisible in it. You do that once. And they do not in this whole movie. There's no reason. Like, the way that they treat Jessica Alba in the 2005. See, this is now the thing of like, you and I both hated the way that they treated her invisibility in the 2005 movie. Now we're looking back at that and we're like, well, that actually.
Well, they at least did it.
At least acknowledged that she could turn invisible. And that was a thing that they also didn't do anything in that movie where she was supposed to sneak by somebody. Why would you make an invisible person who doesn't have to sneak in somewhere? I don't know.
Well, and they could have in the finale had, for some reason, she had to sneak past Victor, who had no reason to know she could turn invisible.
Right. Yeah. That would have been a character moment.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. They didn't do that.
Yeah. All they had to do is like, Sue, you got to go over there to go get the laser zapper or something.
Right. And Victor's in the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you do when you have invisible. Now the weird thing is Victor. I like Victor.
Yeah, he's the best character in the film.
Okay. I wasn't sure whether I was going to have to fight you on that. Like,
no.
He's really good, actually.
He's still not Dr. Doom in any way, shape, or form.
Oh,
but
no.
He's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike, I hate to say, like, the setup they give Ben in this movie is cute, but it doesn't feel grounded in anything necessarily.
Yeah.
It feels like something you come up with for a movie or a story.
Yeah.
Of unlikely friends. And
actually, you know what it should have been? Oh, I just realized this. Ben is in love with Reed in this movie.
That actually would have
doesn't that make everything make more sense?
Way more sense.
Because he like follows him around and just loves him so much, and like when he goes to the Baxter Foundation, he's like, "This is where you belong." Ben is totally in love with him.
That makes 10 times more sense than what I had watched it as. Yeah.
Was this a good movie?
No.
Okay. But it's that.
That still doesn't. But that proves it.
Yeah, it's that kind of moment though, where it's just like, oh, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben actually makes sense when you think about that, and then like the whole second half of the movie is Ben feeling betrayed by Reed and hating him.
That's what I was thinking was the scene where
which only
Reed comes back and he's talking to him and the angry eyes through the thing. Yeah, looking at that. I think there's definitely a read there for that. I don't know. I can't imagine they ever actually had that conversation or.
Yeah, no, probably not. But it is the only way that any of that movie makes sense.
It is. It literally is.
But Victor is like, he's funny. He's probably the only person who has actually funny lines. He's very charismatic, I think. He's cranky. He has like real opinions and actually like tries to vibe off other actors in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Miles Teller, like he actually brings something to the scene. And there's like, and he has cute lines. So like when Johnny sees him and Johnny doesn't like him, he's like, "Oh, hey, Adolf, you're here." And Victor's like, "Still not German," which is cute. Like, it's a funny line.
Yeah.
It's an actual joke, which they don't usually do.
Now that you say it, it makes me realize how clamped down this thing must have been, because Michael B. Jordan's good in this, but that's kind of one of those places where he shines. Is how he bounces, and he bounces off other actors very well.
And he does not in this movie at all.
No.
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan is like the whole in the second half of the movie, basically he is locked up in a government prison where they're trying to like take advantage of him and use his skills. And I think that's a metaphor for how he's being used in this movie. He thinks that he's an actor in this movie, and no, they're just studying him and using him.
It's totally true.
Not to his advantage.
Yeah.
The street race. There's a thing that I noticed about the street race that drives me crazy now. Again, it's like everything in the movie is super dark. Like literally you can't see. And so Johnny is introduced as like, he's doing street race, like he's cool. He's not snowboarding, unfortunately. He doesn't go to the X Games. But he does, but his cool thing is that like he does street racing at night with people. And so you see him, like him and two other cars. And there is a red car, but it's not Johnny's car. It's night. It's like pitch black night out. His car is brown, black, hard to say. It's like some dark color. The reason why I'm like obsessing over the color of his car is because then they do like the street race scene where like you see the cars like moving around each other and you can't tell which one is his.
Yeah.
Like that feels just like basic competence for a sequence like that. Is you have his car. You're not supposed to care about the other two people. You hardly see them. All we care about is Johnny and what he does in the scene. You establish what color his car is so that you can tell which one it is when you see them moving around.
I didn't click to that exactly, except for I was like, I don't know what's going on in this race scene until he wipes out.
Yeah.
It also, so they set up Johnny in this movie as a super engineer, which that's hardly ever been his role, whatever in the Fantastic Four, but it's fine. Give him a new thing to do, but cars are kind of figured out,
Yeah.
You kind of, that
you know what cars are like.
Yeah. And so the idea that he's like a super engineer, but he's also has a car that breaks down like the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
And
it's not like it does it doesn't do a thing like I programmed something into it that helps me like turn corners or like drift faster or something like that.
Yeah.
No, it's just a car.
Yeah. And he says he built it, whatever. Yeah. But but
his dad says later he can build anything.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's totally not set up in the street.
Yeah. It's a very like discombobulated bit. And I understand they're trying to say, well, yeah, he's building cars because he's not there. But it's like, well, you got to show him being competent.
Yeah. And they just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a surprise to me when he actually successfully, I thought they were going to do something with like, oh, well, we actually screwed up when we built the transport dingus.
And it was going to be his fault.
I thought maybe. I mean, then it was, just stuff just happened. They never really pointed the finger at anybody, but
no.
I guess it blew up because of the chain reaction on the other dimension. But I mean, the movie's just unforgiving to the actors. I don't know how much of it was direction. I've never seen Mara, whatever her name is, in anything else I've never seen Miles Teller in anything else.
She's been in stuff. They've all I think.
Yeah. No, I'm aware they are. I just haven't seen them. Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy who plays Victor, he's been in I looked him up on Wikipedia. He's been in a ton of things. He's in some successful series. I forget what. I like him. But Michael B. Jordan, so he's okay in this. like his scenes are at least like watchable and more watchable probably than a bunch of others.
Yeah, the drama between him and his dad is palpable.
But we know that he's way better than what we get here.
Yeah. I gotta talk about like the utter lack of creativity in the other dimension. It
okay.
It just looks like they went to like Apache Junction, Arizona, and like took some photos and were like, add some CG crap to that.
Yeah.
The utter, it was just to me demonstrative of the utter lack of imagination that went into the movie.
Yeah.
It's just a freaking moonscape. I mean, then you add some like green glowy stuff. Like it gets the job done, but
you're right. But there's nothing,
utterly
nothing
uninteresting
interesting about it. Yeah. So they all get together. These five crazy kids all get put together with Obi-Wan telling them that they're the most special people in the world, and they build the magical dimension hopping machine.
Yeah, that they keep claiming is going to tell them again about the origins of life or the universe or whatever. And I was like, why?
Well, it's because the cloud has the same elemental pattern, something, whatever it was. It's all patterns.
It's patterns.
Right? Patterns. Everything's patterns. So they make, but like, and there's some like lighthearted, like bonding stuff with the five of them, which is cute and probably like the only, and actually like the only like the scene where they're testing it out and they send a monkey to the other dimension first. Mm-hmm. By the way, CGI monkey. Why?
You can rent a monkey.
How expensive are chimps? Yeah. It's not like the monkey does anything. He doesn't like, I don't think he even moves. Like you don't see, he's not even like walking around going like, hey, like giving people a thumbs up or anything. He just is you only see him like strapped into the machine and traveling.
Yeah.
And looking a little weird.
Yeah.
Why would you have a CGI monkey instead of just get a monkey? It's very weird.
Yeah.
But they send the monkey, but that's actually a nice like moment. Like they send the monkey and then the monkey comes back and they're all kind of holding their breath. And it's this like this little moment of triumph for all of this little group. It's the last light moment that's going to happen in the whole, in their lives. Like this is their last pain-free moment. But it's nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they also don't do a particularly great job of I mean, as the guy says, the people who built the like Apollo mission rockets weren't the ones who were sitting on top of the rocket. Like, why did you think you were the ones who were going?
Yeah, that's
you're also minors, as near as I can tell.
Yes, very good point, actually. Yeah, that's the major betrayal of the entire, like the pivot of the movie is that they build this thing with the CGI monkey, and it works, and it goes, and so now it's time to send people.
Mm-hmm.
And they've all been assuming because this is summer camp that they're going to go.
Yeah.
They are not. They are. And are they, tell me this, are they trained to explore unknown dimensional worlds?
I do think it helps that they're like drunk, right? When they go through.
Yes, they are drunk.
I think that helps explain.
Are they trained though? Does it?
No. Well,
this is my question.
I know the decisions I made when I was 18, and I had a few drinks about what I was capable of.
I wish
dancing.
Yeah. I wish I could say that you're wrong, but yeah, I guess it does kind of. So they they get drunk without Sue. They get drunk. They call Ben.
Yeah.
So it's like the four boys.
Yeah.
Which is awful. He calls Ben. Ben is not part of this at all.
No.
Ben is his best friend from back home. He calls Ben.
Yeah.
Come to another dimension. They do not call Sue, which is hard.
Yeah, well, it kind of doubles down on the idea of no one's getting along with Sue in this movie.
I guess. Yeah.
I mean, Johnny's fighting with her when he comes back.
But Victor's supposed to be like, the weird thing is that according to the end of the movie, Victor and Reed like have some kind of romantic rivalry over Sue, which does not really appear in the movie.
They mentioned
one little scene.
But
where Victor is like, you're being inappropriate with her.
Yeah.
So they go to the other dimension. So here's the four boys get into their magic machine with the elemental particles.
They go to Apache Junction, Arizona.
They go to Apache Junction, Arizona. Yeah, and it really is just kind of like this dark, black, rocky area.
Yeah,
they've done it. They have. It's actually the last nice moment in the movie. They have a moment of just like here we are. Like we've done. This is the thing that we've been like working so hard our whole lives to get to. They do it, and they're here. Great. And then you and me in the audience are like, okay, go home. Get back to Earth. Tell everybody that you just did it.
Yeah. No. Show the footage. Yeah.
No. They see that that there's like scary green glowy energy down in the basin. They rappel down a cliff to get there and walk across clearly unstable terrain. That's all like green and glowy. And then, Prometheus. Have you watched Prometheus?
Yes. Yeah.
There's a wonderful moment in Prometheus where a scientist who studies like xenobiology.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
They see like a really dangerous, like new alien that they've never seen before in their life, and they're like, "I wonder what happens if I like touch it with my tongue."
Yeah. I'm gonna kiss it.
Yeah, let me just stand there and like make out with this completely new monster. That's how they treat this planet. That they're, especially Victor's just like the ground. Oh, the energy, like it's responding to physical stimulus, like it's alive. Like, you don't touch it though. And he just goes and puts his whole hand in it.
Yeah, I mean, part of me felt like, I'm also a 40-something adult, but like even as a teen, I would have been like, we did it. Let's show the video. We can earn their trust that we pulled it off. It's successful.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get to go back. Yeah. But the idea of what we should do is rappel down an alien landscape towards glowing stuff.
Yeah.
That's probably going to fill us all with cancer.
Yeah. And put your face in it.
Yeah. And then make blow bubbles in it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't hold past the sniff test.
It's very silly.
And of course, it sets off the chain reaction then.
So the thing about that is like, so it's silly, like the fact that he goes and makes out with it. But like the damaging thing for the movie about that moment is that like, because it's Victor's the one who like puts his hand, he's like, oh, this glowy shit, I want to play with it. And then like him touching it makes like everything explode and everything blowing up, and they have to try and run back and like go up the cliff, and he is like, Reed, help me up. He's like the last one, and then he falls. Reed, you help me, and like he loses his grip. This is 100% Victor's fault. Victor's the one who's like, let's go down this cliff. He's the one that walks over to the energy thing and puts his hand in it. It is Victor's fault. In the first movie, in the 2005 movie, in both movies, Victor blames Reed.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone blames Reed in both movies. And in the first movie, he kind of has a point, not really.
Mm-hmm.
But like Reed is the one who like does the miscalculation and gets them zapped with cosmic stuff. In this one, seriously, Reed does not do a damn thing to deserve anything.
No. And I don't think the movie ever suggest, does Victor blame him? I don't.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
That's the craziest thing about the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Is that Victor, like in the final battle, he's like, you were always so smug.
Right.
You were always thinking you were smarter than me. And I'm like, that literally never came up.
Yeah.
You are pretending that there was some kind of emotional relationship that this is not Reed's fault.
I was just trying to keep up with the ending of the movie of like, now what are they doing? Why are they doing it? And, so the whole exploration scene should have been filled with wonder. It absolutely was not. And you're supposed to do we're going to do the feeling of wonder, and now we're going to have the music take the downturn, and everyone starts realizing this is actually dangerous. They don't do any of that.
No, it's terrifying from like moment one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway, when they return then and they all that's when you get into the body horror sequence. And I could not flip and believe what I was looking at.
It's awful. Yeah. They get sent to Area 57. Like they come back, they're all hit with crazy cosmic goop. And Sue, who's like in the room when they come back, is hit with it too. So now all 5 of them, like the other thing. Oh, Victor's gone. Victor's like left behind in the green world. But then the 4 of them now like they're all knocked out. And then it says Area 57, like government underground black ops research, where they are being tortured.
Yeah. It's
straight up.
Yeah, I can't imagine being a Marvel exec and sitting through the showing of this movie the first time.
Yeah.
And going, have you ever read one of our comic books?
Yeah. Oh, and Fantastic Four. Like if you think about like that 1961, like Fantastic Four in full color.
Yeah.
The most exciting comics magazine ever. Like it's color, it's flying around, it's action.
Yeah. Everything about it's fun and crazy. And this is Reed stretched out. Like
unconscious.
It goes on and on. Oh my God.
Screaming.
Yeah.
And people, and like, I guess the weirdest thing for here and kind of throughout the whole thing is like how powerless they all are. There's like faceless people on the other side of the window, like pushing buttons and not really talking to him. And so Reed is screaming, like, why can't I move? Where's Ben? Where are my friends? Help me. Like, why won't you tell me what's going on? And they just say, like, give him some sedative. And they push a button and he gets some sedative.
Yeah.
Nobody even tries to say, would you like to go snowboarding? As they do in the 2005 movie. Maria Menounos is not here. There are no sexy ski jump time.
No, the jump they make then from this to they've all agreed to living here in the bunker.
Baxter Foundation, yeah. They did not consent to what happens here.
They say that because Sue has a little speech to Johnny about I agreed to stay because they're going to help me get better.
Right.
I didn't agree to be a weapon or whatever.
Yeah.
Where they're coming down on opposite sides of that, which is kind of interesting in a very not Fantastic Four way.
Yeah. But that's even later. Like right now, like what we're talking about is just straight up they're being tortured by government agents who do not treat them like people at all. They're like subject number 1 is being contained. And he's screaming and asking questions. And like Ben is screaming for help.
Yeah.
Ben is in pain. He has no idea what's going on. His body has turned into something that he does not recognize. He can't move. And we hear him scream for help for I don't know how many minutes.
Yeah.
And it is chill. Like that is legit chilling. Like if the thing that you want is for Ben to be chilling.
It's so bizarre. I don't know. I don't think they tried to sell action figures or anything. For this movie.
No, you wouldn't.
But that's the thing is like, if anything, like I said with the other movie, like you should be here to sell the Fantasticar and Herbie toys. And that's what
were there toys for this movie? It didn't even occur to me.
I can't imagine there were. I can see.
I'm going to look.
I don't think even like Marvel Legends has come out and tried to do like a line. But they did. Did they really?
Yeah, there's toys.
Oh my God.
Oh, there's toys. Is this right? Oh, but it's like not even. Okay, so they didn't really do toys of these characters. I'm looking at something that came out in 2015, but they have blue costumes on and Herbie's in it. So
actually I remember that line of figures.
So this is not and there's no and Johnny's not in it.
Yeah, because
That's
Johnny
really
wasn't
funny.
in that cartoon.
I'm gonna have to.
That was
I'm
when
gonna have
they. Yeah.
I should not be doing this while we're trying to have a conversation. Is me like going on the internet and looking it up. But yeah, I really wonder like
Because
if they ever made any toys, because this is not a toy. This is not, they're
I can't. If I'd taken my 8-year-old, I don't have an 8-year-old, but my hypothetical 8-year-old, I would have been like, "We're going at this point."
Don't do that. Don't do that.
And it's the Fantastic Four. I get it if it's the science guys or whatever you've made up, but this is where it gets really weird with the other studios having the licenses and going, "We're going to do," we have full creative control.
I don't think they knew. They just didn't know what they were doing here and what they wanted this to be.
I mean, at this point, we've had Man of Steel.
In
2013 is when Man of Steel came out.
Yeah, but Man of Steel is also dark. See, that's the thing is like once Zack Snyder takes over, like they kind of think it's okay.
Yeah. I think that was the calculus of like, this is where superhero movies are going.
Yeah, Batman Begins, whatever. I don't know, maybe the Christian Bale stuff, but yeah, like there's a line that I really like, which is later when Reed and Ben are talking again, and Reed says, "Does it hurt?" And Ben says, "I'm used to it."
Yeah,
like that's a chilling, like kind of thinking about the Thing and thinking like he's actually in pain all of the time. Like if you like think about that as the Michael Chiklis like getting with the black blind lady, right? Like that's his like he's actually in pain this whole time. It's awful.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like it's an interesting
the thing is always though that you can't hurt him, but he emotionally it's the Superman thing, right?
Yeah.
He's a softie under all that rock. So the idea
this really is not. Yeah, you're right. This is just not him. Like that concept that like he's just in pain all the time.
And I hate to be like weird about it, but it's like, who decided that his dick was going to disappear? Like he has no butt. He has no. He's essentially.
You know what? I didn't look. I'm ashamed of myself. I did not look.
It's a weird anatomical, like they were like, well, we're not putting shorts on him is stupid. I'm like, putting the shorts on him allows people to go, he can take a dump. He can,
this guy is just rock as far as you can see. Yeah. I like his face. That's the thing that I like about this film.
See, and and that was the thing. I didn't love the design of like it. I think maybe the CGI eyes were not alive enough for me or something. Like it wasn't old blue eyes as I think of the thing.
No, it's very it's I'm thinking of it just as like what looks cool as opposed to like what actually works in a movie. And I thought it looked cool.
And I am waiting for when Marvel gets their hands on it and gives him like that beetle brow and the like tiny nose. Johnny
just burns. And it is shot like a horror movie. There is scary music and he's just groaning and afraid and in pain. And so that's like the second half of this movie is just them suffering.
Yeah. Reed's on the run while he's abandoned his friends,
And so this is awful is that like he escapes because he can stretch himself. So he escapes from his little containment cell and goes through the air ducts and talks to Ben. And Ben is like, Reed, help me.
Yeah.
I can't move. What's going on? You have to help. And then Reed hears like, Subject 1 has broken containment. He's like, oh, I gotta go. And he runs, and Ben is like, but wait, no, help me. And so Reed runs away 1 year later.
Yeah, no, not to run off to formulate a plan for how he's going to spring his pals.
1 year later. And everyone hates him. The leader, Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, such a weird pivot.
What are you doing? And that's the whole end of the movie is like the government people, like now they're using Ben as a weapon.
He murders 43 people. They put it on the screen.
Oh, I didn't even notice
They said 43 confirmed kills.
Oh my God. Yeah, okay, so they're sending him in to War Zones.
Yeah.
43 kills. That's awesome.
Johnny's getting ready
to go bird. Yeah, he's psyched about it. He's like, oh, I can flame up and like go, and he's ready to just like be a weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
Everyone talks to them through speakers. Like it's just creepy. And then there's the second action sequence, which is Sue like putting her music on and looking for patterns to find where Reed is hiding. And like, oh, he blipped this IP address and he blipped that IP. And like, so they hunt him down because they find him with patterns. And then the one action sequence is American soldiers trying to hunt him down. And he like flips around and slips and they like shoot each other instead. And then Ben comes and takes him down. And that's the action scene. And then tells Reed that he's not his friend. I know.
Yeah. It's so not good. And I can see in the like weird body horror, like thinking of what was going on, of what they were thinking. I mean, who knows what the original ending was supposed to be.
Yeah. Like the story I heard was it just didn't have a third act. Like it didn't have an ending. And they made this one out of parts and reshoots.
I mean, because that doesn't make any sense either.
I know.
They send the military guys in, and the military guys find Victor immediately. He hasn't apparently left the 1 acre of...
No, he's still there.
Yeah. And he's stumbling around like he's super weak, and they carry him off. 2 minutes later, he has...
Every power.
All the powers.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but he wants to go back, and he has all the powers on the other side too.
Yeah.
And
so that is now his dimension. He loves it.
Yeah.
It's his place. It has kept him alive, and he wants to go back, and he hates this world. And this is in a movie that is full of worst parts. The worst part of the movie is that Victor doesn't make sense. That Victor Doom doesn't make sense. That he comes back and it's like, what are things that are not true about Victor as we knew him earlier in the movie? He doesn't want to destroy the world. He doesn't hate Reed. He doesn't have a romantic relationship with Sue. Like he does, like none of those things. He's the funny one. Yeah. He's like the one charismatic, like fun character. And now he comes back and it's like, oh, it's, and again, this is like a thing that was obvious and fake in 2005, but at least it makes sense that like you can track through that movie that like Victor is selfish and Victor like, is competing with Reed and Victor has all this anger inside of him. In this movie, this Victor is like the best one.
Yeah. And why they don't just go, you know what, put him back in the thing and send him back.
Yeah.
Like we're going to save ourselves a lot of trouble. Like who's trying this? Why would you try and stop him?
Yeah. And so, well, I mean, it's not like they have much of a chance to figure out a strategy. He just starts popping people's heads with his brain.
Yeah. I couldn't honestly believe what I was seeing when that started happening. I was like, so he's got all the powers.
Yeah.
So what?
Why is he so angry?
Yeah. Well, and also how are we going to stop him with a little fire being kind of strong? Like,
and being invisible. Yeah.
And being a bit like,
right. None of our powers are useful for this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I couldn't honestly tell you now what they did to actually, I know there was some like Rube Goldberg shit they did that was she's going to do a force field. He's going to shoot fire and Reed's going to be a rubber band, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a happy ending.
Well, then they jump to the weird happy ending of like, and that's when you see some light. They're like, now,
but it does not connect to anything else.
No, we're going to give you an entire research facility full of people. And it's like, but why?
That is the weird scene. That's one of the weird moments in motion picture history is like after they defeat Doom and they shut the portal. And now it's the four of them. Like they're sitting in a boardroom across from, I'm going to say, the government. Because there's no other explanation for what's happening. It's like it's the United States government sitting at a table with Reed Richards.
Had Winter Soldier come out at this point? I have to think it had.
I'm not gonna look.
Because that's all I could think was, did they really like
Winter
that
Soldier?
Black Widow? Like,
It's Winter Soldier came out in 2014.
Yeah, they saw Black Widow talking down the government people.
Right.
You know, like that. We're just gonna do
We're
that.
doing that. Yeah. So it's just like whoever the hell it is who's like, okay, we're gonna put you back in a cage and play with you. And they're like, no, you won't. And the government's like, well, but what if we try and stop you? And they're like, don't even try. And that's it. And then they just like stare at them. And then the thing that happens is like now they're in charge. It feels like they're in charge of the government.
Yeah.
Like they talk to some army-ish looking dude and he's like, well, you run the place now. So like they apparently run the United States government. And
you're 19 and have powers.
You're sometimes kind of invisible.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Pentagon, Dr. Richards, is how it feels.
Yeah.
And they just turn over the keys. And that's the happy ending.
I was so gobsmacked by this movie.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't believe I could, because I'd heard the horror stories of the production and Josh Trank's, Twitter meltdown and but to actually watch it and understand like how weird, and it's not even like goofy bad, it just bad it is, and how it seems to actively be working against the idea of like the idea that it's based on.
Yes, absolutely.
I just felt kind of bad for the people back at like Marvel, and I have to assume that's when they're like, we have to just buy Fox. That's the only thing we do at this point.
So there's a comic that I saw. There's an issue of The Punisher that came out like a little bit after this movie came out that starts with these actors like in Los Angeles in a conference room talking about how they're making a sequel, and then the building explodes. That's the beginning of this issue of the comic.
Oh man.
And and so it's just like it's because it has nothing to do with anything, but just like the story is like this building in Los Angeles blows up, and that's how this story happens to begin. And so they decided to take these actors and put them in that building.
I mean, that's kind of some old school like comic book. Like no one's watching what we're doing, so we're gonna do this.
Stuff. Yeah, that's Marvel. Marvel is just like, fuck you. You're the worst.
I mean, and as much as people kind of complain about like the domination of like Marvel Studios itself, it's like, but when they don't do things, this is what we end up with.
Yes, yeah. Actually, that's such a good point. Like, this is, if anybody says like, oh, Marvel Cinematic Universe, everything gets put through the studio like grinder. It's all the same. It's all like it's whatever, like anybody who says that, we should say just go and watch Fantastic Four 2015. Like this is what happens when the company isn't watching and making sure you're not destroying their property.
And I mean, and that's kind of been the genius of Marvel Studios since its inception. Originally, I don't know if you ever heard about like Iron Man and what they were originally planning to do, and then they flew in Bendis and some other people, and they were dark?
Like, I don't know the story.
It wasn't so much they were like going to do the Mandarin like straight as like the Yellow Fear.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Man.
And so they were like, no. We're not even doing that in the comics anymore. They're like, so don't do that. And they're like, there's a lot of things you guys can do. And so they kind of walked them backward from what the initial plans were.
I love that idea of Brian Michael Bendis just showing up at work and just being like, whoa, okay, you guys need to stop.
But you know, that's the history. I mean, this is kind of maybe the tail end of, I mean, DC still has whatever's going on with DC, where it seems like their TV stuff is the only stuff that seems close to the comics, but they,
like this is like, the funny thing is that Fantastic Four, this 2015, like I'm looking at my list now, Iron Man came out in 2008. Iron Man 2, 2010, and then Thor and Captain America. They did the Avengers in 2012. Like, we are very much like, this is after Winter Soldier. Oh, this is after Guardians of the Galaxy. Which is really like, this is my theory, is that like MCU actually starts with Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, that's the movie when they actually realize, like, oh, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
It's funny too.
Yeah.
So we're now at peak MCU. And then this movie is released at that point. It's released between like Ant-Man and Deadpool.
Well, and I remember the conversations. You would pick it up and you know, if you're reading the patterns of like what Warner Brothers was saying of like what the difference was going to be for their movies versus what Marvel was doing. Because they're like, well, Marvel's that bright, chipper universe. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, we're the dark, broody universe. I'm like, have you read your own comic?
I know, right. Yeah. Why is that exactly?
And I have to think that may have been what Fox decided they were going to do too. Like, we're going to double down on the edgelord audience. But with the Fantastic Four, like, it didn't make any sense. And I'll never understand. I understand why they went for the Mark Millar comic flavor of the youth and all that in some ways. But I will be very curious to see what they do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe version.
Did they not fight crime?
Well, you know, and I think I'm going to actually debate that point, because I never think of the Fantastic Four as crime fighters. I think of them as explorers and adventurers. They're challengers of the unknown with superpowers, right?
Yeah.
And they end up along the way fighting Kang or whoever.
Monsters and aliens and crazy people.
But yeah, I mean, Ben Grimm isn't like patrolling the streets, except when he is. But
right, except in Marvel Team Up, where he's like with Spider-Man.
Right. And so it's but just like, hey, why not have a Baxter building downtown that's full of crazy technology that like is just bleeping and blinking and has tubes and, you know, Kirby Crackle and all this stuff that is what people think of when they think of Fantastic Four. And it's fascinating to me in some ways that they didn't try it. I think Eternals was interesting in that they took kind of a weird swing at it, and still, like, I was like, you just couldn't just do Kirby. And it's like, like, just do Kirby when you're doing Kirby.
Yeah.
It's not like other people haven't followed and done other Fantastic Four, but they all know this is the aesthetic of Fantastic Four. Right. This is what the how the characters interact.
Yeah.
And the movie people set those comics on fire. They did not care.
So here's the thing. I just realized what we have to do right now, you and I. This is depressing. I am realizing now, like, we are now becoming just as depressing as this movie is.
Okay.
So challenge for you and me. You and I are sitting across the table from the Fantastic Four. We are the government. And we're like, we think your movie is terrible and you suck. And they're looking at us and they're like, no, you don't. Can we figure out a way to make this movie the greatest movie of all time? They're looking at you and they're very angry.
I got nothing.
What can we give them? Fast-paced? Exciting? I'm trying. You know what I'm doing? I'm doing one of those like those science whiteboard montages like they do in the movie. Let's do one of them. They have black people in the lead, which is nice. That's a good thing. It's romantic. It's super not romantic. Okay.
Yeah.
It can't be done. It can't be done.
I mean, I'm sure it made it didn't even make the people who were working on it happy while they were working on it. So you can't say like
no. Every single person who interacted with this movie in any way is miserable, including us.
So that's it. It's a movie that was so horrible in its concoction. It continues to spread out like the Big Bang. So everyone who's touched by the wave of this movie is also miserable for some amount of time.
And stops working in superhero movies. Except for Michael B. Jordan. Who
is blessed by the Johnny Storm curse to be better in whatever the next role is.
Yeah, and he goes on and he's awesome.
Yeah.
Can we actually say like this marks a point where you can't do this anymore? At least? But then they do Justice League, and Justice League just does this.
Yeah.
You had it for a minute and I let it go.
No, I don't think. I think as long as there are people out there who think they know better than Marvel Studios, but don't essentially want to spend the time and do the homework to understand what they're spending $150 million on, you're going to keep getting things like this. But right now Marvel has gone so crazy. They've bought Fox Studios and I think you're still seeing like, I just keep laughing about the fact there's a flipping Morbius movie coming and
I know.
Like, I just can't get my head around the fact that that's true. And it cast Jared Leto in that role on top of everything else. I get why there's Venom movies, but I look at Venom when I've never seen Venom, but when I looked at the trailers and I've seen a few minutes of it on FX on cable, I've been like, yeah, this is exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's going to appeal very much to the people who want that, where this didn't appeal to anyone. Because the person who made it didn't want to make it.
I guess one good thing you can say is that the movie hurt Josh Trank more than it hurt us.
Yes. Yeah, I guess that's okay.
It kind of destroyed him, which I wish I could say I was unhappy about.
I mean, if he was promising with Chronicle, which I've not seen, it makes me sad that he was taking, okay, my giant dog is now going to come over here and try and insert himself, as he does at the end of every podcast. He's like 110 pounds. He's a big boy. He Ryan,
why did you replace him with a CGI dog? It would be so much easier just to get a dog. Ridiculous.
Don't tell anyone. But yeah, it makes me a little, but at the same time, I'm like, if you didn't want to make a Fantastic Four movie, why did you sign up to make a Fantastic Four movie? The arrogance it takes to decide that you're going to take something beloved by generations of people and you're going to show everyone that your vision is so much better when no one's on board with this vision.
Right. Yeah. No one wants that. Yeah.
But the studio didn't just fire him. And so for that, I blame the producers. Like, it was the wrong person. Yeah. They absolutely hired the wrong person. No one involved really knew what they were doing. You know what it was? They were all just like, hey, there's glowy green energy stuff over there. Let's rappel down this cliff and go and put our hand in it. Yeah. That's actually how they made the movie. It may be the last one of these that gets made with the people thinking that they don't need to say what you will about Zack Snyder. Mm-hmm. I feel like he at least has opened the comics. He has not understood them. Oh yeah. But he's glanced through. He believes that he is making a comic book movie. Yeah. And I don't feel like these people from producers to
No.
art directors to anyone had ever cracked a comic.
No.
And this may be the last time that actually happens. And DC and Marvel have everything so locked down at this point. I guess it's Sony.
You know what though?
A weird branch, but
have you seen the New Mutants movie?
I did.
I haven't.
It's better than this.
Why do they do it?
But it's we can come back. We can podcast that.
Oh, that'll be our next one.
Okay.
We'll watch. You know what? We'll watch Dark Phoenix and New Mutants.
Oh man, I've not seen Dark Phoenix.
And just swim in the darkness.
Yeah. No, I New Mutants was like really key to me when I was getting into comics. I was like, I don't care how bad it is, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
And it ends, and I was just kind of like, huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can see how they came to that conclusion, but again, and I'm not giving any spoilers away, they decided again it was a horror movie.
Yep.
And it's
not even a fun kind of horror movie.
No, it's the strangest. Like, you're like, okay, I can kind of see how you came to this conclusion.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it when we podcast it.
Yes, we will.
All right. Danny, I got to jump off, but
all right. This was super fun.
This was super fun. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone's enjoyed our 2-part Fantastic Four Fantastic Fest. Yeah. And we'll be back to do more. And definitely, Danny, what's that URL people should be going to?
Thank you so much. I was just going there. Superheroes. The blog is called Superheroes Every Day. It is at superheroeseveryday.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Superheroes Every Day. All of that. Just go and look for it. It's awesome. It'll be fun. And I'm doing something soon. And this has been really great. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. That about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed the podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. We'd love to hear from you, so find us online and let us know what you think. Whether you prefer email, blog comments, or social media, we'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies, you've got to be kind.